hoping all of you are here because you are passionate about something. Is this true? Is everyone here passionate? And it's probably about different things, right? Everyone's passionate about something that they want to share with the world. And so the four of us are passionate about our own things. So we're going to introduce ourselves and tell you what we're passionate about, what we do, and then we'll get into the meat of generating creative content. How many here do video games? All right, what else do we do? Board games? Anyone do board games like me? Hey, what else? Shout it out. D&D. D&D? Role-playing. Awesome. I think we got you covered. All right.
Card games.
Card games, yeah, that fits into my wheelhouse too. So we'll start at this end. Introduce yourself and what you create, where you can find you, and then let's go down the line.
Right here. I'm Shannen Camp, and I am an author. I've got 13 books out right now. One of them is about gamers, actually. It's called Pwned. But I also write for svg.com, which is a gaming website, and I'm on Twitch and YouTube as Persephone Plasmids because I have a really unhealthy love of Bioshock. But yeah, if you do happen to go to my YouTube channel right now, just know that this is like a before cautionary tale what it probably shouldn't be, because it's like really clunky and terrible and I'm working on it. So just bear with me for that. But I actually am in the middle of uploading my Doki Doki playthrough.
Can everybody hear? Feel free to move up if you can't hear.
Don't be shy.
Stand up.
Snuggle up.
Come on. Come up closer.
Trying to create a draft in the room. Do you want me to close the door back there?
I just want everyone to hear. So if you want, come up closer. Go ahead.
All right, I am Mike Thayer. I write children's fantasy novels. So these are my first two books, Passes to Avalon and Uncharted Lands. It's in a series called The Epic Adventures of the Techno Wizard. As of Monday, this bad boy is a Whitney finalist.
Oh, awesome.
Which is pretty rad. So
that is exciting. Yay.
super pumped about that. I've written another book that's with an agent as of also Monday. Monday was a good day.
Yeah.
Man.
Called Danny Doubleday. It's a story of a 6th grade boy who lives every day twice. I also have a podcast called Calling All Nerds. I am an engineer. I work for ExxonMobil, so any environmental questions, just save them for afterwards. We can debate later. And I stream on Twitch under the name The New Hooligan. So that's what I do.
I am Natasha Ence. I am a professional game master for tabletop RPGs. I also do some game design and game writing. And I don't stream or YouTube yet.
We were talking about this yesterday. There's still time.
Yes. Oh, there's plenty of time. I'm new in my little industry. I'm happy and new. But yeah.
Awesome. I'm Ryan Decaria. I do a podcast called Meeple Nation. We cover all things board games. And we just recorded, I think, episode 258. So we've been doing it for quite a while. I'm also an author. I wrote a book called Devil in the Microscope. It's YA mad science. And the sequel's coming out soon. So that's awesome. All right, so the first seed question was a little heavy, but what are the advantages and disadvantages of all the different types of media that you can put your content out there? And it's going to be different for each of us because we don't all use the same media. But go ahead and talk about what media you use and which ones you might not use. Okay.
Well, I've noticed that because I'm actually on my cards, it says find me on Twitch, and I actually am starting to do more on like YouTube, or I want to start doing that. So I feel like having almost too many options can kind of be distracting, and maybe like, not that you can't do both or that you can't, put media out on different platforms, but in my case, I found that I was just streaming to Twitch and then uploading those streams to YouTube, and so I was like, that's not really good YouTube content, like that's fine for a Twitch stream, but...
So what are the advantages of Twitch?
I mean, I like the live interaction. I guess you can kind of do these things now with YouTube anyway, so... I mean, they're kind of competing.
So what is YouTube, right? They're competing, but what's the advantage of, like, why would you suggest someone do YouTube?
The thing that I like more about YouTube is I can do, I haven't yet, but I can do more polished videos, like you can do like lists and like things with lots of edits, and so my biggest thing is my Twitch stuff. There's a lot of space in between because I play a lot of puzzle games, and so it's like, well, this is not exciting content to watch if I'm sitting there trying to figure out a puzzle, But on YouTube, I'll record it beforehand instead of doing it live, and then I can edit that part out. So it's like, we're not watching 10 minutes of me being like, wait a minute, what am I supposed to do right now?
Yeah, and just a quick overview of like YouTube and Twitch, because they both offer live video game streaming services. Twitch went live in 2011, primarily as we're the video game, board game, in real life folks. And then YouTube, you've been able to do live ever since then, but they really didn't go video game centric until like 2015. No. So on average, Twitch has like 3 or 4 times, well, they have at least double the amount of viewers watching video games as YouTube does. Obviously, YouTube as a whole is way bigger than Twitch. But as far as video games goes, Twitch has kind of got that, not cornered. In fact, YouTube is growing faster than Twitch is growing, although they're both growing fast. So Twitch is where, if you're just doing video games, Twitch is where the gamers kind of are. There's some high-profile people that are switching back and forth between the two mediums because YouTube will entice someone like a ninja-style person, right, to come over and stream on YouTube and vice versa. But if it's gaming you're after, Twitch usually has it cornered. They had a better model for incentives as far as subscriptions and bits and people making money early on than YouTube. And YouTube's done a bunch to close that gap, and they're closing it fast. But if it is video games you're after, Twitch is usually the place that kind of has that market cornered. But YouTube is gaining quick.
Is there anything else out there?
Not really.
Not really. They're kind of the two big players.
Well, that's does anybody watch Outside Xbox on YouTube? Best ever. So that's kind of what I wanted to start doing was they do a lot of gaming content. They do Let's Plays and things like that, but it's not so much focused on the live streaming. It's more like these are the biggest twists in video games, you know, and they do like lists and things. So I think it really does depend on if you want to do like solely live gaming.
But I think if you look at anyone on Twitch that's like, take Dr. Disrespect, right? Yeah. He uploads all of his stuff to YouTube. So you can get videos and clips on Twitch, but that's not really where people go for past stuff. Yeah. Even though it is there, if you're looking at Twitch, it's usually people doing it right then and there. And then the second that things are passed and you upload, you want to see, you know, Dr. Disrespect followed this guy who ended up modding and was a cheater. You're going to find that video on YouTube. That's where people are going to watch it after the fact.
Do they normally edit before they upload to YouTube?
Some people do, but some people don't. They're like, this was my stream for the day. It's 6 hours long. And they don't do it. They get someone else to do it, but they'll just upload it onto their channel and they'll roll. Mm-hmm. But then again, we were saying before, all the polished stuff, the list, the top 10, that's just standard YouTube stuff, right? Yeah. You don't really even stream that. Those are polished videos you're putting together. So I don't know of anyone who has a Twitch channel and doesn't also have a YouTube channel. But I think there's plenty of YouTube people that don't have Twitches.
Yeah, it's like what they want to focus their time on.
Yeah.
What video games do you play?
So I'm primarily, I tried Fortnite, but I just can't keep up with the youngins. So I went back to Halo Master Chief, where I just dominate. So I'm doing Halo Master Chief, and I can talk about this a little bit more, whether you want to be a variety streamer or like a single game streamer. And then whether you want to do it for money or whether you're just doing it for fun. I really want to play more Zelda Breath of the Wild. And I know that like maybe it's not a very like twitchable game, but I just want to play it. And so I might switch over. But I like Halo Master Chief. I like Destiny. I like those kind of games. I might even get into like, you know, Call of Duty and stuff. But I think I might go with Zelda just because it's so much fun.
Okay. So let's shift gears to Natasha. Tell us about how you do your games. Do you write your own?
I do write my own content.
All right, so tell us your business model and then how you generate content.
So my business model is I find people who will pay me to write stories for them to play in like Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, Mutants and Masterminds, any RPG system, right? So they come to me wanting like a custom story and then I generate that for them. So while I don't stream like these guys, I do create custom content. It's just completely different. So I go in and I create a story arc that's an overarching, you know, big story, and then I create for each character a little arc, very much like in writing.
And so people hire you for a 4-hour session, and you run the game.
Yes. Very simply, that is my life.
I think everyone out here is jealous because everyone up here is jealous.
So cool. That's the basis of my job. And I also create, you know, the encounters within those 4-hour sessions and how that's going to play into, you know, each of those character arcs and the bigger story arc and how that's going to drive the plot forward.
Are you doing anything with these after the fact? Are you planning on publishing these in any way?
So everyone that I work with is under an IP waiver, which means that any content that is created, because when you go into a game like Dungeons and Dragons, as soon as you hit the table, right, it becomes collaborative storytelling. So it's not just me bringing content, but the other people, they bring their characters to the table. So they're also bringing content. So what I've had them sign is an IP waiver. So they have agreed that any content that they create has been given back to me. So at that point, I can take that content and I can, take it and put it into a book or put it back into a module that I can then sell and continue with that content.
Yeah, it's awesome that it's not just gone.
Yeah, gone forever.
Yeah. So podcasting, anyone tried to podcast here? So it seems like this big mysterious thing, like how do you record this thing and then have people listen to it?
Yeah.
Like there's a process, but you start breaking it down, it's really not that complicated. We use Lisbon and the interface is pretty easy. So once you've recorded and edited, if you edit your content, then it's pretty easy to just post, right? You upload your MP3, you write the show notes, right? And you get the titles and then you set it up ahead of time so that it posts to Facebook, it posts to Twitter about the podcast, but it also posts to all of the different avenues, the podcatchers, the Stitcher, the Apple, the iTunes Store. And so it's kind of like a blast. Like once you've set it up, then posting an episode is really not that complicated. Right. So you have a question?
Yeah, what was it called again?
Lisbon?
It's Libsyn, right?
Libsyn,
it stands for Liberated Syndication, I think.
So it's Libysyn.
That just hosts your, because you could put your own episodes up on your own website, but then every time people try to download it, it would just bog your whole website down. Mm-hmm. Unless you had 3 people listening to it, then it wouldn't matter.
So Lisbon is a way to kind of let someone else take care of it, but it costs money, right? So there's a little bit of overhead, and so like when you're podcasting, you're hoping at some point to make it break even or maybe make you money, right?
Right.
So we did a lot of episodes before we started getting any kind of sponsorship, and we just kind of soaked that money between the 3 of us, so it wasn't too bad, right? But we paid for this Libsyn hosting, but you can host it yourself, but there's a whole other cost to that too. When you do a podcast, you're probably making your own website, and you could generate content there. We don't do a lot of content on our website, but we do a lot on Facebook. We have our own Facebook user group that we have people interact with us on. And so there's a lot of different ways to generate an audience for starting your podcast. We'll look at the next question. Cool. Okay, so let's go down the line and just tell us how you got started doing this. Well, start this way and go that way.
So personally, I decided, while professional game mastering, it's not a super big thing, but I decided game mastering takes time and a certain amount of talent and know-how and skill, so there must be someone out there who will be willing to pay for it. So I went out and I found those people and started getting people to pay me for it and set up a business. I got a business license because you need that sort of thing if people are paying you money so you can pay taxes. And I advertised and marketed as you do with any other business, and yeah, took off.
I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. So, worked for oil and gas for 10 years, and I'm currently on a leave of absence, a long-term leave of absence, so I can focus on kind of my passion projects. My dad passed away a couple years ago and started reevaluating, what do I want to do with my life? Am I on the right path? I'm making decent money, but I'm not pursuing what I'm passionate about. And so I'm kind of taking this 18 months to try to monetize my passions. So if you can monetize your passions, then what more professionally could you ever dream of doing? So I started writing more, even though I wrote this one while I was still working. Started writing more, started doing the podcast, and then I was like, video gaming is a passion. I had to give a lot of it up, although now the kids are starting to get into video games, so that's good. If you ever want to know how to be a good parent, just get your kids into stuff you're already interested in, and then you just go on autopilot, right? You're the best parent. You're so involved in your kid's life. No, his life is Zelda, so it's not too hard to be involved in his life. Yeah, so I just kind of started trying to monetize my passions, and playing video games was one of them. I also like doing voices and accents. I do my own audiobook
cool.
for the book. So when I stream, I dress up like characters in stream. Yeah, so I dress up like a big old cowboy. I'm like, oh man, that kid's slicker than a boiled onion. And I got a big old list of like crazy cowboy sayings I work into stuff. And yeah, it seems ridiculous, but I'm kind of a ridiculous person. So yeah, monetizing my passions. So
excellent.
Yeah.
I'm still looking for a yellow raincoat so I can stream Little Nightmares while I wear that.
I thought you were like April O'Neil route.
No.
Okay.
So I've just been playing video games since I was like 3. Like I was born and then got handed a controller. And I got into writing because I'd always wanted to be a writer, and I started noticing that this sounds terrible actually, but a lot of my writing friends would be like, "Oh, have you read this book? Have you read this book?" And I was like, "Well, I've played this video game." Like that's where I got my inspiration for this book from. And so I'm just a very like visual person, and so most of my like inspiration for stuff comes from video games. And I was like, okay, I want to keep writing, but how can I also bring gaming into this? And that's when I started thinking like, well, I love Outside Xbox, and I love like Game Theorist and all these people. Like maybe I could try to do something like that. So it just kind of ended up being this is where the majority of my focus was going, and so I wanted to go.
Awesome. So I was standing in line for Salt Lake City Comic-Con, and we got there early. Me and my friend were just standing there, and we tried to make a board game at one point, and it's a lot of work. And we weren't quite willing to do what it takes to, we got this started and kind of had a prototype, but like it's so much work. So we were thinking we should do something. We've been playing board games together for like 20 years, the same group of people for the most part. And I was just saying we should do something. What should we do to pass it forward, right? To create something that people that would want to listen to or create or play. And we just thought, why don't we start a podcast? We got one of our other friends, and we just decided we were going to do it. And our other friend was a little bit more tech savvy and knew the technical side of things, and got a lot of the website stuff up and running. But we just one day decided we were going to do it, and it's that commitment, right, that really makes a difference. If you decide to do it, you're basically going to commit to a pattern of your life. You're changing your life to create something on a regular basis. And so if you're not committed to that, you're going to have a hard time. And so I guess what I want to shift now is what is your routine like on a weekly basis? Like how much time do you think that you put into this? And then what are you sacrificing to make this happen? Does that seem fair? You want to start?
Oh, so most of my time during the week, besides having a 1-year-old who doesn't nap, and I'm not exaggerating, she doesn't take naps. I brought it up to the pediatrician, they're like, it's fine. No, it's not fine. So other than that, most of my time is taken up with writing gaming articles for svg.com because I have to do 2 articles a week, and they have to be like 3,000 words each. So a lot of my time goes into researching video games. Because I have to know what I'm talking about, and a lot of the time it's not, hey, what do you want to write about? It's like, oh, hey, Red Dead Redemption 2 just came out, write 5 articles on this. Like, oh, I don't have it yet. So, yeah, a lot of my routine is learning more about games and writing my articles, and then at night is usually when I'll be able to, stream or now start recording, which is another reason why I wanted to get more into YouTube, because I just don't have the schedule to be able to live stream. Instead, it's easier for me to be able to record and then edit out when, the baby comes into the room and, make it more polished. So, yeah.
So I'll do a plug on for why that's extremely important to have routine. Because it's like, what you're doing with Twitch and YouTube when you're streaming is you're creating a TV show, right? You're creating your own TV show. And, back in the day when you couldn't just binge watch stuff on Netflix, like Friends came out a certain night. It was like Thursday night at 7. And if and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this week it came out Tuesday at noon? Like what? People wouldn't know where to find you. They wouldn't have watched Friends very much. So the routine is huge. Now I'm going to admit that I stink at it. So I've been studying this stuff for a long time, kind of like a long time peruser, and then I finally started, and I would game in the evenings, like after the kids went down. And then for those of you who are LDS, I got called as an early morning seminary teacher. And so I'm having to get the routine back. So because I'm kind of a night owl. So I was gaming at night, and I haven't been able to sort of shift. So I write during the day. I do a lot of school visits. I do a lot of public speaking in schools about creativity and writing. But I want to game in the evenings, which is tough because there's only a certain crowd that's on in the evenings, right? There's like a guy in Norway, his name's Asmodai, and he's been gaming every single day, like not 24/7, but 7 days a week. And he actually wakes up at like 3:30 in the morning to catch the American audience at a certain time. So
That's commitment.
Yeah, that's definitely commitment. So routine is huge. So if you're going to do it and you're serious about it and you're not just doing it to kind of dink around, you got to stick to a routine and publicize that routine. I'm doing this at this time. I'm going to play this game. The more you can do that, and the more people can predict what you're going to do, then I think the more steady growth you're going to have.
And if you need a more lenient routine, that's when you switch platforms.
Yeah, or you just say,
That's what I had to do.
Wednesday's my variety stream day, right?
Yeah.
Or you announce it, you make it public. But the people that gain a lot of followers are people who play the same game. Because most people don't follow streamers, they follow games.
Yeah.
Unless you're like Dr. Disrespect, who could play Tiddlywinks, and people would probably watch the guy.
Yeah.
But he is a rare breed. The odds that you are Dr. Disrespect is probably very small.
Unless you're gonna go get a wig.
Yeah. So he's good at what he does, but for the most part, people follow games and not streamers.
Interesting.
So I want to hit one more thing. What do you guys sacrifice to make your content?
Sleep.
Yeah,
Sleep's
that's
a big
exactly
one.
what it is.
That's the
sleep.
easy one. People will say, I don't have time. You're like, well, how many hours of sleep do you get at night? 9? Well, you get 6. You got 3 hours a day.
I know, I'm like, I get like
Right?
5, 6.
So you're actually sacrificing having a full-time job currently, right? You
Sure.
could go back to it, I
could.
guess.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
that's in order to do all this, I could
So
not.
does
pull
that
off.
put a different spin on the family, providing for your family? Now you're not pulling in that
Yeah, so
salary
this would
from salary?
go. This is a whole different kettle of fish, but I'll just touch on it. I don't recommend just jumping wholesale to pursue your passions when you have 3 kids, right? I had a unique situation. I'm an engineer for Exxon. I was able to save a lot of money. I have other investments that generate some income. I gave myself a certain financial runway, and I have 0 risk because I'm on a leave of absence. So if something happened, I just make a phone call and I'm back working. So if you want to pursue your passions, the first thing you need to do is get a skill that society cares about and develop that skill, and then you can pursue your passions as a side hustle. But I got into a position where I was like, you know what? I can take a leave of absence. I can get 5 years worth of this kind of stuff done by sacrificing 1 year of engineering. So I might as well do it when I'm 34 and not when I'm 74, because I don't know if I'm going to even be around when I'm 74. So it was one of those sort of calculated decisions that I'm so willing to sacrifice this. And I'm not worried about finances. I see the bank account go tick, 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 tick down, but that stands in an hourglass that I knew were ticking.
Right, but that is a
Right?
sacrifice. Right?
For sure it is.
So I think that's when you do decide to create content, you are making sacrifices.
There's an opportunity cost with everything you do.
All right.
Yeah.
You have anything else to add before we move on?
No, I'm done. I could talk forever, so I'm just going to...
All right.
So I'm going to be honest. I'm not the one that sacrifices. My husband is the one that sacrifices. Because here's my thing. I got really, really sick like 2 years ago. And so I had to give up going through my master's degree. And I was sitting at home really, really sick, and I couldn't do pretty much diddly squat. And so I decided, okay, after a couple months of that, I was really bored out of my skull, and I was like, I need to do something to contribute in some way. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna give this a shot. And so now I GM for a living, essentially. But my husband is the one that goes to work every day and has the stable income. And if I fail at this, he is still going to be there, going to work every day and having the stable income. So I'm not the one making the sacrifices here. So, yeah.
Well, you still make some sacrifice, right? Spending time, right? So tell us about your routine and how much time you spend on it.
Well, yeah.
You could be doing that time, using that time elsewhere.
Well, yes, but ultimately, for me, because I have chronic illnesses, my time, spending that time elsewhere, I would be sleeping or moping or, whatever else.
Hey, giving up moping is a big deal.
Fine.
We all like
whatever.
a mope. We all
But
like a really good, healthy
not,
mope.
It's not like, I am sacrificing kind of sucking. Like, it's not it's not a sacrifice to me. Like, this is what I get up for in the morning because I love it. It's not me sacrificing. Like, that's not the way I think about it.
So you have the 4 hours session, but how much time do you put in for this adventure for a session ahead of time? How
A
much
lot
time's
of brain
involved?
space.
Okay.
We'll put it that way. I don't do a lot of prep, but I do a lot of like marketing and advertising, or Facebook work or Twitter work, or interacting with clients and making sure that they're ready to play and all of that stuff. And I love my play-by-post games. I'm going to be honest. I really love my play-by-post games. Probably more than I love my live games.
All right. So I have a full-time job too. I'm a technical writer, and I write books on the side. I'm hoping to make that faster, like finding time for that. But when we decided to make a podcast, we decided it was going to be every week a half hour. And so far we've done that for about over 3 years.
Jeez.
Put out at least a half-hour episode every week. And so the commitment there, one, we have to be playing games, which is the easy part, right? We have a regular game night. We've been playing together for like 20 years, so we just keep getting games in. But then we still have to like brainstorm. What are we going to talk about this week? And have to put that like idea together. And we don't spend a whole ton of time. But then once a week we get together and we podcast. And we talk to each other and we plan. And that is a sacrifice for my family to have me leave once a night. I mean, it's twice a night, right? I played the board games on the one night, and then we podcast on another night. And this is something that's important to me to have this one to produce something. It just feels good, and you can put it out there. And we have an audience, which is kind of cool. It's not a huge like mega audience. I mean, there's a few board game podcasts that get tens of thousands of listeners every week. Yeah. We're not that. But we're above average for a podcast, so we're doing that. We have sponsorships, which we've never had before. For the last year, I think we've had sponsorships, which is kind of cool. It's not a lot of money, right? But it pays for our hosting and our web hosting. Right? So the sacrifice isn't like a huge time commitment, but it's the consistency that means almost everything, right? If they, like he was saying with TV shows, our show comes out every Wednesday, and people download it some point during the week, but they're assuming that it's going to be there. And so if you're going to generate content, you have to decide on a cadence. How often are you going to put content out there? Is it every day? Is it once a week? Is it once every other week? Once a month? You got to decide on a length. Once you have a length, you generally need to stick to it, right? People are expecting something. If you say it's 15-minute podcasts every week, and they're the way listening on the work, and it's 45 minutes, and their commute's only 30 minutes, it affects how they view you, right? It affects how they're going to still listen to you. So the consistency, and you can go long if it's 30 minutes. Ours is 30 minutes to an hour, but there's a consistency that you have to have. If we also released an episode that was 4 hours long, we might lose people just from that one change, right? Yeah. Or if we were an hour podcast and we released a 10-minute episode, we could lose people from that, right? So it's really a strange game, but the key is consistency, and that to do that, you really have to commit. And it's kind of the win-win and the lose-lose. Like you're stuck in that rut. And some people have a hard time with the rut, right? To keep generating the same type of content over and over and over again, but that's where your audience is coming to you for. And so it's the catch-22 of the content creation.
Well, and that it brings up the work aspect of it, because I feel like, especially with being an author as well, people are like, oh, that's so fun, you get to write books, and yeah, writing books is fun, but the editing process is not fun, and marketing is not fun, and all these other parts, like the writing the book part is that big, and then the rest of it is this big thing. And I feel like that's something maybe people don't know, especially with gaming, is they're like, oh, you get to play video games for a living, that's so cool. I'm like, well, no, in fact, I don't get to play video games for a living.
Right,
I play video games, right? And then I have to edit this video for 5 hours. And
right, and it's also the structure. You're building a structure that doesn't just happen on its own.
Yeah.
Right. You're structuring your play session so that it will meet the what your audience is expecting, and so you don't just get to play whatever you want for however long you want, because you're creating that for an audience that are expecting you to deliver something that they want to see.
Yeah.
You look at this example, this Asmodee guy who has played Hearthstone for 7-8 hours a day for like 3 straight years. Like, I like Hearthstone. Do you like it that much? Because it's like
Do you really want
my
that
second
much?
grade teacher, their family owned like a chocolate business. And when people would hire on, she's like, you have as much chocolate as you want. Because she knew after a week, everyone would be sick of chocolate. Right? Like, you work in a chocolate factory. It's like Willy Wonka. And they're like, I don't even want to look at chocolate. Like, that's that could become you, right? So I want a variety stream. But if you variety stream, are people going to show up? And so sometimes you get pigeonholed into doing something that looked cool, but now has become very, very much a chore. So how do you keep it fresh? I mean, that's a whole different topic of conversation. But
Yeah, the
it's one of those things.
specificity versus
Right.
your content versus how much fun you want to have at it, right?
Yep.
Interesting dilemma. Hey, anything else on that?
Just that I'm amazed with writing articles for a gaming website, how much I'm researching rather than actually writing. Like, most of my week
yeah.
is researching stuff about video games and finding sources and like, yeah, it's a good time.
I'm amazed that you can do that.
Oh my gosh! Like, I was like, wait, video games were fun at one point. They still are, just not the ones I have to write about. I'm like, I will never play Red Dead Redemption 2 now. I have to write one more article.
So one part of the thing is I play a lot of board games, but to keep casting about board games, I have to play new games
Yeah.
all the time. And so Terraforming Mars is my favorite board game. I would play that every week if I could.
But you're like, you don't get to.
And I don't get to, right? We have to play new things, which are great, right?
Yeah.
So, and not every game's great. You know, sometimes you play games. Like, my friends love social deduction games. I just get sick of them. We play them way too often. But this is part of the thing. You play them, and then you move on to something else.
Yeah.
Okay, here's one of the seed questions that I don't know that we're going to find an answer to, but it's how do you keep a entertaining atmosphere going on air?
I got something to say about that one. So you have to be one of 3 things. You have to be first, best, or different. Okay? So and I got examples of each of those. Okay? So you have people who are first. This guy, another Hearthstone person, Crip. Okay? He's just been playing it forever. He's just one of the first people on the scene. Lyric is one of the most viewed Twitch streamers. Lyric doesn't even have a webcam. Don't model your stream after Lyric. Lyric has 30,000 concurrent viewers just because Lyric's been there forever. He's been there for 9 years. Okay? So you got to be first. If you're first on the scene to something, that helps. If you're best, if you're ninja, then you don't even have to communicate with the people who are talking in your chat, right? Because you're the best. People are going to show up to watch you do your thing. Or if you're the best speed runner or whatever you are, people are going to show up to do that. Or you got to be different. Okay? If you're not first, if you're not the best, Dr. Disrespect is different, right? And you can say he's the best at being different, which just kind of combines to him. So I am not the best player. I am definitely not the first one, but I was like, I try to be different. Not everyone's going to dress up like a cowboy with an American flag hat or Gandalf or whatever else I'm going to do, right? So I try to be different. But you got to be one of those 3 because you're not competing with another streamer. You're competing with someone playing Fortnite. You're competing with Netflix. That person could be doing anything, and we've never been in the history of the world. We've never been in a time that has more distractions. So they could be doing anything: playing video games, watching movies, watching Netflix. Why are they watching your channel? So out of all the infinite things someone could be doing, why are they watching your stream? And if you can't answer that question, you probably got to kind of go back to square one, to the formula. So I try to be entertaining. Some people like to watch people that are just super salty, right? They just get trolled and they just give awesome, crazy explosions in response, and it's entertaining, right? So I would say that if you can focus on trying to be best, first, or different, and try to see where you're at, then I think people are gonna watch it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to be first, though.
Oh, sometimes it's impossible. In a weird one, sometimes it goes in cycles. Like there's a guy, Grubby, who plays Warcraft 3. And he was like the original Warcraft 3 guy, and he's just been playing it for a long time. Warcraft 3 is now going to get remastered. He's sitting on a gold mine. When that thing drops, he's going to be the man. And he just got lucky. So he's going to be first on a video game that came out when I was 10, you know? And so sometimes it's luck. Being first, a lot of it's luck. You just happen to be in the right place at the right time. So don't count on that. And I wouldn't look, if you're like trying to start your stream out, don't look at Ninja. Don't try to replicate ninjas. Look at someone who's a mid-level streamer, who's playing your game, who's got a decent audience, and then try to close and reconcile the gap between you and him or her. That's way more productive than looking at someone who makes $1 million a month. Because you're just not that person. Right? You might be one day, but you're not. So I would give yourself a lot more realistic stepping stones to go after.
So you put on a cowboy hat and do funny voices.
I do, and I would say, you have to interact. If you start and you have no followers, good. You do not want followers because you want to practice. It is not natural for you to sit there. Does anyone by themselves sit there and just commentate their gameplay? No, right? Yeah, exactly. You might, well, might be. I'm crazy. Watch me play. But you got to practice. If you're playing a game like Halo, when you die, you got to practice checking the screen for comments because there's reboot time on the respawn. You have to address your chat, right? You don't naturally do that stuff. So, relish that first month or two when no one's watching you because you got to get out the kinks. Because why on earth would someone tune to you if you're like this and you're not ninja? If you're not like a god in a game, then why would I just watch you play it without you saying anything? Entertain me, man. Yeah. If not, it's that guy's not saying anything. Click. You got half a second.
Yeah.
So you've got to be loud or something.
In and out of there so fast.
Yeah.
All right. Entertainment.
So I feel like knowing your strengths is definitely a big thing because that's another reason why I'm going more towards YouTube now instead of Twitch. Because I realized when I'm playing a puzzle game, which is something I like to do, I get quiet. And I do that. I'll sit there and be okay, let me figure it out. And then I realized that is not good content. I need to be able to edit that kind of stuff out. And so I try to model my gameplay now after people that I enjoy watching. So again, outside Xbox, I like them because of the comments that they make throughout the game. They make funny observations and they just say the most ridiculous things. But because of that, I kind of realized, okay, Twitch is not going to be my strength, despite what this really old business card said. That was optimistic.
Hey, it's written down.
Right?
It's
exactly.
Written down.
It is there.
You're stuck.
Exactly, right? So Twitch is not my strength because I played Hello Neighbor on Twitch, and it was probably the most boring Twitch stream ever because the whole time I was stuck in a freaking room, and I was like, well, this is great. People want to watch me, wandering around the edge of the room trying to open a door for 5 hours.
But if you're freaking out while you do it, that's good TV.
Right? Exactly.
I would watch you sit there and just lose your mind because you can't get out of a room. I was like, this is entertaining. I'll pick that up.
Entertaining.
Right.
That's has anyone watched Poised on YouTube? He's so funny. He's a streamer who only plays horror games, VR horror games, and he has got the highest pitched scream I have ever heard in my life. And that guy freaks out. So knowing your strength and knowing where you're going to be most entertaining. I'm not going to be entertaining on Twitch when I'm trying to figure things out, but if I can edit out the parts where I'm figuring things out, then that's going to be better. I just finished editing my Doki Doki Literature Club playthrough, and it went from an hour-long video to a 10-minute video. I was like, oh, good, yeah. Good thing I wasn't on Twitch when I was doing this.
All right, Natasha, you have people's attention for 4 hours. How do you keep entertaining them for 4 hours?
Well, some of that is not me entertaining them. Some of them is just them entertaining themselves. Right. I don't know. I think part of it is you have to add value, right? I mean, and so part of it is that high-pitched scream, right? That is not in that game. So you are coming for that high-pitched scream.
Exactly.
So for me, it is, what can I add value to this? And you see that with Critical Role. They bring in voice actors. Yeah. So they're adding that value. So for me, it's what value can I add? And for me, it's I add story. I add story content. Or I add different mechanics that the game doesn't already have. And that's what I add. That's the entertainment value there.
So I'm going to add one more thing to your list. The other thing you can do is fill a niche that people are after, right? And maybe they don't even know they're after it yet. So if you're providing information, sometimes that's some of the most popular ones are about serial killers, right? Podcasts. People love that, right? But you got to do a lot of research. So you're filling a niche. You don't necessarily have to be the most entertaining voice or have the funniest scream or anything, right? But you're filling a niche and finding that niche. And I go back to the thing that we're passionate about these things. So if you find that you're passionate about something, you go out there and see what's out there and see if there's anything that's close to what you would listen to, right? You want to make the content that you yourself would listen to because you're the audience. You know exactly what you want. And if you're generating that exactly what you want, and there's people out there that, and if you're consistent, that are going to find you and they're going to listen to you. And you got to put yourself out there enough that people can find you. And so a lot of times podcasts, people do it on their commute. So they're finding something it's basically they're having a conversation that they're not a part of that they can have while they're on their way to work. And so if you're providing them information, you're talking about the things that they would be talking about with their friends, then you'll find an audience and people will consume that entertainment. And so I don't know that you necessarily, you don't want to not be entertaining.
Yeah.
But it depends on what your niche is and how you're feeling that.
That's exactly what Game Theorist did, is he spends this ridiculous amount of time using like physics and like math and all these things to like prove these ideas in video games, like these really far-fetched ideas, but he does it so well that by the end of it you're like, oh my gosh, this really is like Five Nights at Freddy's really is this crazy thing with kids' souls inside of them, and like it's a niche that nobody else was filling at the time, and now he's like the best at it. In my opinion.
For me, it's like, how many people like board games that want to talk about worker placement for a half hour? Oh, we're almost done. All right, so worker placement in video games for a half hour, right? There's people out there that would love to sit down and chew your ear off about worker placement games for 30 minutes. And those are the people that tend to watch our show or listen to our show, right? Or we review a game and they want to hear about Nemesis and what makes that game great. That's why they're tuning in to our show, right? And there's other podcasts that feel different niches for board games, right? There's ones that are 3 hours long that you listen to over the course of a week. And there's ones that you work on, that you listen to just on your commute. The Writing Excuses podcast, probably everyone's here is somewhat familiar with that. 15 minutes long, right? That they try to stay to, and they could talk for hours, and people would listen to them. But they chose a model and stuck with it, even though they could change that in any number of ways and still be as equally as popular. So if you think there's a niche out there, you're looking at content for what you want to create, and you're not seeing it, then that's when you know that there's a niche there that you could possibly fill. All right, so I want to use the last few minutes. Does anyone want to pitch us your idea, and we'll give you some advice?
I think this guy had a question.
Yeah. Do you have a question?
Oh, maybe not. I'm sorry.
Okay, does anyone want to? You guys have a great idea for content generation. You want to pitch it to us, we'll give you some advice.
I mean, I'm writing a book. Do you mind if I tell you guys about it?
So publishing a book is
different.
a whole different thing, and there's so many panels about that at this convention. Anyone else have content, a podcast or a video stream that you want to do? Like, if you could create it tomorrow, you'd be all in. Okay, go ahead.
So this would actually be towards Natasha. I actually consider myself a bit of a GM myself, and I like to say I do it fairly well. However, I tend to do a bit more homebrew style.
Yes.
I'm not very much for the rules. I'm much more about the story and the interaction, and the dice kind of help guide that thing. So overall, do you feel like that's something that potentially might actually work?
You have a lot of potential there. I always suggest using some sort of system, and there are a lot of rules light systems out there that that might float your boat, right? You don't have to go with something heavy and crunchy, right? Like Pathfinder or D&D. Find something that's rules light, an indie game that's maybe 10 pages long that just fills your niche, and find a group and roll with that.
All right.
Right, your audience is important. Right?
Yeah.
Audiences.
So if your audience, for her, if she's wanting to do what you were saying, but her group wants to play D&D, you're going to butt heads there, right?
Yeah.
So if the group wants D&D and she wants to do something else, this might be a problem. So she's got to play to the group with the expectations of the audience.
Yeah.
But if you do find the audience that wants that, right, then that's what you're looking for.
And I mean, if you're talking about like streaming and stuff, and your audience of whoever you're streaming to or casting to or whatever your lovely terms are, and they just want story, that's great because then you can go very mechanics low.
But if people are wanting to learn the game, that's different.
Obviously, that's not going to work.
Yeah, it's not going to work. So you have to think about that and play to the strength, right?
Yeah.
Anyone else? We're almost out of time. Chris.
So I have a gaming YouTube channel. I just kind of got it last year, and I've been working on it, and I don't have very good ideas for like ideas for how to play and like certain challenges for a game and stuff. So is there any advice on how to coming up with diverse ideas?
So how old are you?
13.
You're 13. Okay, so I have a 9-year-old son. In fact, if you guys went Owen Michael Thayer on YouTube, if you guys went and liked his stuff, he would freak out. So he posts YouTube videos. He just plays Mario or Smash Brothers or Fortnite or something. And I've tried to get him to do game reviews. I would say the first thing, what do you like? So what are the things that when you're chilling and no one's telling you what to watch, what are you going to and what are you watching? So those types of videos, and those are going to give you some ideas. And then if you're like, yeah, I don't think my content's that good, like we all know the concept of 10,000 hours, right? You got to put 10,000 hours towards something in order to get really, really good at it. The fact that you're starting now, if this is something you want to do, is huge versus someone starting when they're 27 or 35. So I wouldn't beat yourself up about it. I would just get the kinks out. Like if you, like my son's sitting there, he's commenting on gameplay and he's doing crazy facial expressions, and I was like, 95% of people on Twitch don't do this, right? Yeah. And so if you can start now, and it looks like you're passionate about it, so no, your parents are going to have to be like, son, go stream, or you're not going to get dinner, right? You're going to do it yourself, which is awesome. So I would say, what do you like to watch? What are things that interest you? And then do your own version of it, right? So tweak it, put your own spin on it, and then just practice, man. If you just get there and just practice commenting on your gameplay and just speaking your mind as you go, not everything you say has been brilliant, but that's half the fun, right?
And what are going to be the things that make your face light up and like make you all excited, right? Because those are going to be the things that people are going to really enjoy watching you, stream or whatever. Like those are the things that I enjoy watching people do. So think about that, right? What makes you excited and just like get all giddy and happy.
And when all else fails, just dress up like a cowboy. It works for me like 9 times out of 10.
So the one thing I want to end on is what we all did to be to where we are now is we just started. We just decided, we made a commitment to create something and make it happen. No one gave us permission. No one hired us for these contents. No one hired me to write a book. I wrote a book, right? I made a podcast. And you guys can do it too. Find what you're passionate about and just create something. All right, thanks for coming.
Awesome.